Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? And I will start by saying thank you for attending. This is Day in the Life of a Networking Professional. We are going to go through a couple slides just to tell you what's going to happen in the event. So my name is Rebecca McDonough. I'm the Work-Based Learning Director for the GIVE grant. We have several guest speakers, all from different companies, who are going to speak to you about networking. They will usually take about 5 to 10 minutes to tell you a little bit about themselves and their careers, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask every single one of them questions. And then at the end, Caleb Williamson, who is a CIT instructor at Pellissippi, is going to tell you more about our program at Pellissippi for networking. And then you're going to hear from Laura Grosek, the career navigator for the GIVE grant, who is going to tell you more about all the different stuff that GIVE has going on that you can get involved with. So we have a couple of guest speakers. The first is going to be Mike Bragg from Team Health. He's the director of networking there. Then Shelly Seals from 21st Mortgage, Joshua Phillips from GLS, and Christopher Brose. Okay. So if we don't have any other questions at this point, then I will ask that we go ahead and start the recording. Just let all the students know if you could keep your camera off for the duration of the recording. That would really help us because we will send this out to IT instructors in Knox County schools, and we don't want to catch anybody's image so that we can go ahead and share that. So just keep your camera off. If you do have questions, feel free to take your mic off and ask, or to put that in the chat, and we will read that question out loud for everybody. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going to hand it off to Mike.
Hello, everybody. I've been actually in the IT industry for since about '94 when I started working at my first IT job. I've gotten to see where networking has moved from almost an analog, state where people were using analog modems to dial into bulletin boards and all that stuff, all the way up to now, which you've got gigabit speeds to your house and things like that. So it's pretty interesting to see how the IT industry has changed. If you guys can remember, I got started playing games on an Atari 2600, and that's what kind of sparked me as wanting to find out more about computers, then get on into networking and programming. I guess my first job was at a university where I really got in depth and got some certifications, and I was able to take that certification knowledge that I got and turn that into experience. Became a valued team member, and from there, I just found the right jobs to where I ended up here. As far as education, I went to get my 4-year degree, and that's helped out along with the certifications. As far as the job requirements for the network engineer, normally you're looking for a 2-year or 4-year degree with some certifications, just depending upon what level of at your stage in your development, what stage you're at. Are you a junior associate? Are you an engineer or a senior engineer? Usually when you're a junior associate or an entry level, you're doing your certifications to gain that knowledge, and then you're also hopefully getting to apply that in a job to where you're learning, making that knowledge and turning it into experience and wisdom. So the area of IT that I work in is digital infrastructure, specifically networking. Our company has different groups, system administrators, programmers, and then networking, telecom, voice. But as far as the networking is concerned, a typical day would be you'd come in, check your break fixes. Usually you'll get the service desk saying, hey, we've got this down. So then you start logging into routers, and based upon the information they give you, you know where to go look and troubleshoot, or you have an idea. Just to make sure everybody, when they come in for work, everything's up for them to log in and do their job. Also, the kind of work we could do during a day is project-based work, like if you're having to swap out routers at all of your remote offices, there's a project to do that. There's all the coordination of configuring the router, shipping it out, having someone to swap it out. You can do that kind of work. And it's also not only network projects, but there are times when you get selected to work with other teams on their projects to make sure the network will be ready for them for what they do. That could be anywhere from configuring a firewall to allow their REST API to go out and do a query, anything like that. And also, there's just plain requests from users who may be logging into a new hospital system, and they need some ports opened up in the firewall so they can get to the remote hospital's system, through SSL VPN, of course. And, what we do is control in the traffic from one wall plate to any other wall plate in the company the network team is responsible for. So we're responsible for the cabling at the office building. From the cabling, it goes to a network switch. From a network switch, it goes to a router, and then the router, it goes to the WAN network. And then from there, you go outside of that remote office, and you can come back to the main data center or go out to the internet to do your job and things like that. As far as platforms, usually the platforms that we use during the day is some sort of SSH client to log into routers, firewall switches, load balancers, the occasional GUI on some appliances. In networking, it's always important to have a network monitoring system like SolarWinds, Orion, Passler's PRTG. Those come in handy for a couple of reasons. One, you can monitor your network and have a baseline for what it's supposed to normally look like. So then when something does go crazy, somebody's downloading a gigabit file across a 10 gig link, it's going to be full for a while. Also, the network management system lets you know when things are down, and it sends you traps and helps you try to be more proactive than reactive to what's going on in the network. And of course, if you have a help desk or service desk, there's also the ticketing system. You get assigned tickets and you work the tickets, and that's related to the break fix part of our job. As far as what I would suggest, I think just from listening, I think a lot of people, if you're wanting to get into the IT field and you're at an entry-level position, I think certifications are a good idea, just to gain that knowledge and knowing how things work, so that you can walk in to a job, an entry level job, and say, okay, I know it's supposed to do this, and then watch it do that. Or when I flip this switch or change this route, it should, the traffic should go this way. Getting that certification and getting the experience behind it is what you really want to do. And also learn a scripting language with networking. It's really changing in the past 2 years or so. Even learning a scripting language like Python, and being able to do REST APIs through it, really important to learn. The old way of just using an SSH client and going into a router or switch and configuring it, that's still there, but the industry is kind of leaning towards REST APIs for equipment and or just flat out using a web browser and a GUI. But the reason you want to learn Python is just about every networking utility these days has that REST API. You can use Python to automate the simple stuff for yourself so that you can save your time for doing other kinds of work. And I would say always keep learning. If you stop learning, if I'd stopped learning about networking, back in 94 or the 2000s, all I would know is about analog modems. I wouldn't know about gigabit speeds, cable modems, so always keep learning. Always recognize, I guess, how can I say this? Always be adding skills to your tool belt. Because if all I know how to use is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So there are several tools and skills you can learn that will make things better for you and make you a better employee and better engineer. Always be a good team player. Help and support your other team members, being helpful. In these days and ages, that's a huge thing. And have good communication skills. I guess that's kind of covered the majority of what I was thinking. Are there any questions or comments?
If you have any questions, it's a good time to ask, or if you think of something later, you can always put it in the chat and we'll come back to it. Anybody have any questions right now for Mr. Bragg? Okay. Oh, we have something in the chat. Okay, so somebody is talking about internships. Can you talk a little bit about internships at Team Health? You may not have any available for high school students, but can you talk a little bit about how an internship structure would work?
So the intern structure, I think Team Health in our sysadmin department has had a few Pellissippi State students come through and actually be very successful. We haven't had a chance to have a networking one yet, but I think it would be a good fit to have some Pellissippi interns. As far as interns, the more experience you have, the better. Having the network certifications, and we'd try to work you in day-to-day stuff, tasks. it would start out at an entry level kind of stuff, and as you gain that knowledge and gain experience, then we have you do more difficult things, not too difficult, but you would learn how everything works together: DNS, domain names, router switches, where layer 3 starts, where layer 2 starts, all the way up the OSI layer. And with the point is, like I was mentioning earlier, taking all that knowledge that you've got from certification and getting you some experience behind it, so that you can feel more confident in what you're doing and that you understand how everything works.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Bragg right now? Okay, well, if you think of one, just put it in the chat and we can come back to it. The next speaker that we're going to have is Shelly Seals, and she is with 21st Mortgage.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelly Seals, and I'm with 21st Mortgage. I am considered a junior IS administrator. Only due to the size of our company, we can only have one true network administrator, but I work very closely underneath him, as well as with a few other departments, to make sure that the communication is there between security, network, our Domino administrators, our websites, making sure everything is up and running just proper. We have about 900 plus team members, and we're growing exponentially. So we're actually in process of migrating over to a new phone system, and it is flipping the whole world upside down and rebuilding. And it is takes some time. With the type of work that I do, I kind of float around with the developers and the programmers, make sure we've had to recently set up their own VLAN for certain types of testing. We're having to reconfigure all the Wi-Fi in our 2 buildings downtown. A new office came in and just blew our infrastructure up because everything's overlapping. And it feels like there's always something new on the plate. So you have to be open to learning anything and everything. The newest thing to me is Domino. Domino is an HCL company. It's not widely used, but it's very dev friendly, and a lot of our websites are built off of there. And I was hesitant to learn it first, but it's opened many more doors to learning more ways of building websites. What I would suggest is doing exactly what Mike said. Certifications, 100%. I worked my way up from A+, network, security, cover the bases, and then all my other work has been hands-on. I graduated at Pellissippi with a 2-year degree in biochemistry and ended up going the CIT path. So it sneaks up on you. I went through that really fast, y'all. But being able to work with others is a very key skill to have. That's one thing that has really brought me through to where I am now, is listening, understanding, having the knowledge base behind you too. It's really key. Being able to take notes and focus and document so that way your help desk knows what they need to do. Just simply, quickly, bam, 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 here you are. Tier 2, here you are. What happened? Here it is. Very quick information. You're able to quickly find the situation, isolate it, and solve the problem. Does anyone have any questions? I'm pretty to the point, so I'm.
We like that. We like that. But I actually do have a question, and Shelly, I did not tell you I was going to ask this question, but I was thinking about it while you were talking. There are a lot of women on the call, so I was wondering, thinking about diversity and inclusion in IT, kind of, how do you feel like IT can be more inclusive, and can you talk about that a little bit?
It is, once you show up with the knowledge, you're just there. That's all it is. You're not any different from any other person. Just do what you need to. And that's really just certifications. Just know your stuff.
That's great. Okay, do we have any more questions for Shelly Seals? Any questions for Shelly? Or what it's like to work at 21st Mortgage or anything like that? Okay, remember, if you have a question and you don't feel comfortable asking out loud, you can always write it in the chat and then I will ask it. But we will go ahead and we will go to Joshua Phillips.
Thank you, Rebecca. So my name is Josh Phillips. I am a senior security analyst for Global Linking Solutions. How I got my start in IT was at a school called Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Knoxville. They basically start you day one where they're like, this is a mouse, this is a keyboard, and then let's fast forward to like day 150, 200. They're like, all right, and this is how you set up Active Directory on a Windows domain controller. So it takes you step by step by step by step. And a lot of the courses that I took there are actually offered at Pellissippi. You start out with the A+ hardware, the A+ software, you move on to networking, and then you branch out. I think Pellissippi covers a lot of the Cisco domains, and I think Caleb is the teacher for that. But anyway, a lot of the pathway to get to some sort of entry-level IT job, a good route to go is like CompTIA certifications. That's a good way to start out going to where you're trying to get to. So first and foremost, there's like the A+. How do you take apart a computer? How do you replace parts? Do you know basic software commands? All that kind of stuff is covered in the A+, and that's covered in the networking degree and I think one other degree portion for Pellissippi State. Next, you go into Net+, networking fundamentals, and it really gives you stepping stones to start out your networking career, to figure out how everything works and how you kind of go through one domain to another. And then you get to something that's an entry level into my field, Security+. This teaches you entry-level security fundamentals, what different attack methods there are, what's a bollard, what's a man trap, terms that you'll see and you'll be able to easily identify and know what kind of attack this is, or what kind of cryptographic algorithm this is, or what have you. Those are all the things that would be covered in your normal associate's degree at Pellissippi under, say, a networking or a cyber defense pathway. I know they're covered in those domains. A lot of what I do, so day-to-day life of an analyst, we have these fancy machines called firewalls, and they do a really, really good job of preventing things from getting into our network. We put them on the outside and they stop things from coming in. But sometimes things can get in that are not supposed to. Or sometimes things can masquerade as something else and still be able to wreak havoc on your network. That's where our job comes in. We have systems called a SIEM. A SIEM is a monitoring tool that will give us logs, and we take a human element to all those logs and say, okay, what exactly is happening here? We see this went through the firewall. What is it doing? Oh, it's this normal, like a DNS query, or it's some sort of mail traffic. And a lot of those things you'll learn in the previous sections I was mentioning, like the A+, Net+. Anyway, you'll take these logs and you will try and figure out what's going on. Is this okay? Is this a false positive? Is this a false negative? Is this a true positive? And you'll be able to then go and report to a customer and say, hey, this looks fishy. Is this okay? Is this something you want happening on your network? Is this something you don't want happening on your network? And it takes automation, and then it gives another layer of human interaction to see what's going on. We also deal a lot with, I especially deal a lot with asset reviews. So we will take an asset and we will get the entire configuration. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of just, I mean, it looks just like code if you look at it. It's not code, but that's what it would look like if I presented it to you right now. And you find, is this a problem? Is this the right setting? Is this okay? Is this okay? And you break it down and try and find holes in it and make recommendations like, hey, we should change this setting, or we should alter this thing, or we should just lock this down completely. An example is a customer of mine. I presented a review saying, hey, so we probably don't need this talking to any service talking outside. Turns out the customer didn't even know that existed, and they had been paying a company. They found an invoice. They've been paying for 5 years for a service they didn't even know they were using. So as an analyst, you'll find things like that maybe are overlooked in common everyday operations. In order to go into security analytics, what you want is not a strong, but a foundational understanding of networking. How traffic moves through a network. If you can tell me how it gets from point A to point B, that's really all you need to know to get started. You also need to know basic security fundamentals. So for something like that, if you're trying to get into security, and security analytics is a very good way to get your foot in the door for that, is to go for like the CompTIA Net Plus, the CompTIA Security Plus. Those two will give you some really good foundational knowledge to jump into something like this, or even jump into a good internship where it could turn into a job. I've known several people that's worked for. In order to be successful in the long term in IT, I'm going to go back to what Mike was saying. You need to have a desire to just continually learn. If you look at my Twitter handle, it will say that I'm a security specialist and perpetual student. You are constantly learning. Everything you knew yesterday is not the same as it was today. This thing that's worked for the last 3 years, okay, we shouldn't do it that way because that way is flawed. And complacency is where the bad guys actually start to get us. They start to see, oh, well, they've been doing it this way for so long, they'll never notice if we just deviate and do this. So it's always trying to stay one step ahead by learning and continuing education. And there's a lot of certifications out there for it. There's, like I said, the CompTIA, A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, a newer one, the CYSA and Pen Test Plus. Those are newer ones. There's the ISC Squared, SSCP, System Security Certified Practitioner. There's a lot of the ITIL fundamentals. If you look up IT certification roadmap, you'll probably find you'll find a list of like 500 certifications and roadmaps onto what you should go for, bam, 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 and whatever pathway you're looking for. it doesn't matter what you're really wanting to learn, whether you're wanting to learn networking as infrastructure, hardware, break fix, security, blue team, security, red team, or even management of IT under all those domains. There's a pathway out there for you, and there's something that you still need to learn. Myself, I'm actually a student here at Pellissippi State to learn programming concepts, even though I'm already in the field, just because I know there's always something to learn. So that would be probably my biggest bit of advice to anyone trying to break into IT. Go out there and try and get as much information, as much knowledge as possible. Watch YouTube videos. There's a guy named Professor Messer does a fantastic job of explaining concepts. If you want to learn about hardware and what's new and what's great, there's some YouTubers out there like Linus Tech Tips, Jay's 2 Cents. Whatever you go out and you find that can add to your repertoire, your tool belt, as Mike called it earlier. But that's pretty much it for my piece. Does anyone have any questions for me at all about being an analyst, or about the learning pathways, or anything of that nature?
I have a question. Why did you choose Pellissippi? And then what was kind of your favorite thing about the program at Pellissippi?
Why I chose Pellissippi was I wanted to learn development concepts. I already had a lot of networking and cybersecurity knowledge. So I wanted to learn about development. Well, I have a friend who's actually a AppSec developer for an undisclosed company. He can't tell anyone what the company is, but he makes a lot of money doing it. And he always told me that the course he took at Pellissippi was like mind-blowing, with one of the professors who's unfortunately no longer with us, another one who's retired, but now we got Caleb to add to the roster, and he's just fantastic. It just seems structured, and I also was, one thing, a huge part of it was the Tennessee Reconnect program. The Tennessee Reconnect program is a program that allows people who are over the age of, I believe, 26 to basically go to college for free, similar to your Tennessee Promise program, which most of the people in here would be eligible for. It's like you don't pay anything. Like straight up, some of the people I know in other states are blown away that we have some kind of program here and a school that can take advantage of this. It's wild.
Okay, does anybody else have questions for Josh Phillips? You can put it in the chat, or you can ask out loud.
I got a question for Josh. What was the
What's up?
because you're a little modest on all the certs you guys. You got a lot of certs. What was the hardest cert for you to get?
The CISSP, the CISSP. So there's a little bit of a story, but this was right when COVID started, and masks were becoming a requirement. And I just been transitioned to working from home. I didn't think about it all too much. I forgot a mask, and they said, "Oh yeah, you can't come in the building without a mask." So I had to wear a paintball mask that was in my trunk and stuff it with socks in order for them to let me take a 3-hour exam. And so whenever I was taking the exam, this test, if you've ever heard of it, the CISSP, for all that's here, this is kind of one of the, I'm not going to say end game, but it's one of the top ones on that chart that I was mentioning. It's a test that will adapt based on how you answer it. So if you start messing up certain answers, it will change the test to ask questions that you are struggling on. And it'll eventually either, hey, say, "Oh, you passed," or it'll just end and just you're done. Well, you don't even know if you passed or failed. The test will just end. And you have to go walk past like a security checkpoint, get your fingerprints and handprints checked, and then walk past another security checkpoint. And then they're like, okay, well, you passed, or oh, you failed. And it's an eye-watering, what was it, $700? I'd say that's probably not the hardest test because it was because it was actually the hardest. I think it was a lot of the psychological aspect of it, because it just plays with you. It tricks you. It keeps asking you questions like, maybe you get 3 right in one domain, and there's 7 domains, and you get 1 wrong in another domain. It'll start hammering you on that one domain, like, okay, well, he missed this question, this question. Let's ask him like 30 more questions on these areas. It's like taking a, like, I can't even describe it. Just taking a test, and as you go through the test, if you get a question wrong, it will start asking you all questions about like what the one you missed was. It's honestly a psychological mind game. That's probably the hardest one. And then I'd say number 2, I would have to say number 2 would probably be the CCNA. I haven't tried the new CCNA format, but you'll learn in schools like Pellissippi how to build things from the ground up. But the CCNA presents you with, okay, you know how to build everything, but here's something that's broken, and here's an allotted time to fix everything. I'd say those 2 are probably the hardest ones for me.
Any of our other guest speakers too, feel free to jump in and answer that question, what you felt like the hardest certification was as well.
For me,
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you all.
It was funny for me. It was security. The CCNA wasn't really that hard, but it was the Security Plus that one almost got me. So that was my hardest one.
Oh yeah, the Security Plus will ask you a bunch of questions that you're like, wow, I have never seen that before in my life, and I've been studying this for like 2 months right now. That's a lot of, when you go into IT, you're going to hear a lot about certifications, certification this, certification that. Like I said, I'm sure some of you are looking it up right now, IT certification roadmap. You can get like a beautiful infographic that's like this big, and it'll tell you what's been rated harder or easier. And honestly, certification. You're going to see that throughout your entire IT career, and that's probably what you're going to be gunning for well after you have your degree in whatever.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions for Josh, we're going to move on to Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Rose. I'm currently a network tech at SAIC. I just graduated from Pellissippi last spring. Caleb was one of my teacher of mine for what, 5, 6, it's about like 20 classes. I couldn't get rid of him. I didn't want to take his classes, but he made me. So, but let me see. I think Mike and Josh and Shelly did a great job just explaining just some of the daily functions of what to expect as a network technician. So I do a lot of the same stuff. I think one of the cool things about IT is the fact that you can do anything you want to do in IT. So if you want to do networking, you can go ahead and do networking. If you want to get into security, there's plenty of opportunities. If you want to get into cloud, if you want to get into robotics, AI, whatever you want to do, there's a lane and a path for everyone. The cool thing about Pellissippi is that it's a great stepping stone to get you to where you want to go. I want to talk more on the fun side of things. So like when I started school, like I graduated with a cybersecurity, with a cyber degree and a networking degree. And I think when I first started, I was like, I think this is going to be a little too much for me. I don't want to be overwhelmed. And my first class that I got was Intro to Programming with Caleb. And that still is the most fun class I've had, just because of just the way IT was introduced in that class. We got to do a little bit of everything. We learned about machine learning. We learned about coding, we learned about even video games and things like that, just how everything ties into IT. And it made me realize that I didn't have to sit and focus on cybersecurity or say I want to be a network technician. Because even right now, I'm in a way in the same boat as you all, where I want to learn and I want to get as much as I can out my career and find out how can I get somewhere. So just some of the things that I learned along the way is networking is very important, especially here in Knoxville. A lot of your classmates are going to be your coworkers. It just ends up being that way. Me and Josh worked together, even though he worked on the SOC side, I worked on the Knox side when I was in GLS. And there's plenty of other classmates I had to where we've worked together either at GLS. I did internship at Discovery, and I had a few classmates there as well. Even now at SAIC, I have a classmate of mine that's there as well. So networking, just realizing that you're going to need the people to your left and right once everybody gets back in the classroom. So build those relationships with your fellow classmates, with your professors. What else did I write down? Also, I know everyone harped on it, but learn as much as you can. You're always going to be learning. Like in math, 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. It's never going to change. But in IT, it's the way we connect two people together one day is not going to be the same tomorrow. The way that whatever technology you're using right now is not going to be used tomorrow. So just be ready for change. Always be ready for change. Always be ready for the newest concepts, the newest theories, everything like that. So that's another big thing as well. Certifications, get your certifications. They can be tough depending on which ones you want to get, but they work out in the long run. One of the biggest things that they used to talk about was, well, what's more important, your 2-year degree or your certifications? The answer is both. You want to make sure you get your degree, but at the same time, you want to get your certs as well. And then I'm in a unique position to where I was able to get some certs. I was able to get my degree. And then now I'm currently a student with WGU in their cloud computing program. And it's all the same thing. It's just everything that I'm learning in the classes, I still have to get my certifications. So they want me to get my Cloud Plus. They want me to get AWS certs. They want me to get Google certs. They want me to get all these different certs anyway. So just something that as an IT professional, it's something that you can look forward to getting. Why did I want to do that? Keep learning. Even if you decide you don't want to get certs, just keep learning. Just try to learn as much as you can. Be a sponge to those around you. Mike's been in the game for a long time. So that's definitely somebody, like, if I was working with him, that's somebody I would want to sit around and just try to gather information from him. But at the same time, someone that you might have similar knowledge, you want to stick with them too as well, and just bounce ideas off each other. So those are just some of the keys to, like, I guess, success and just how to navigate through the IT world. But I'll talk a little bit about, like, what I do on a day-to-day. So like I said, I'm with SAIC. Right, they do a lot of different contracts with a lot of different companies. A lot of stuff that they do, not even allowed to talk about. They have things where you can have just a public trust. I had to get a public trust for the projects I'm working on. But as I move up, I'm gonna have to get my security clearance and top secret clearance and things like that. So, but just on what I'm working on now, it's a lot of basic things. You're logging into the equipment, you're checking logs, you're trying to figure out why things aren't connecting or working the way that they are or they're supposed to. Some of the security stuff I'm doing, a lot of what Josh is saying, where we're looking at signatures, we're looking at different things that are coming in or things that get through, and we're trying to figure out either what it is, how to stop it from coming through, or once it comes in, and once it does damage, or if it does damage, what's the scope of damage? What can we do to, like, protect ourselves from it happening again, or reinforce our perimeter. So that's just some of the things I do, I guess. I don't have a lot more to add. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Chris, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
If you were gonna, if you were in charge of hiring someone that would be a teammate to work on a project that you're working on right now, what kind of things would you want them to have under their belt as a minimum requirement to work with?
So I'm very big on giving people a chance. So like I know like companies want like, hey, I want you to have this degree and I want you to have this certification, that certification. I'm more along the lines of come in and let me talk to you and let me see, what do you know, even if you don't have your A+ or even if you don't have your Network Plus. If we have a conversation, if you have just a basic understanding of how networking works, but you have a really, really, really high drive to learn, then I'll bring you along. So I think that someone's willingness to learn sometimes is a little bit more important than just someone has all these certs. Because sometimes you'll get someone with like a bunch of certs that are just like, I know everything, I don't want to do anything, and then it doesn't help the company either. So it's good and bad to have like really knowledgeable people, I guess. Sometimes I saw a question in the chat that said, what should a high school student go start learning IT? A lot of what Josh said, Professor Messer is really good. I use CBT Nuggets for my certs. It's $60 a month, and that could be a lot. There's other resources as well. You could use YouTube, Udemy. I use that a lot. LinkedIn Learning is a really good one as well. You go to McKay's and find different books. Like there's books about Microsoft. There's books about CompTIA certs. There's books about CCNA certs. All different types of things. So there's a whole bunch of different resources you can use, either free or that you have to pay for. But I guess as a high school student, I would definitely start with like YouTube, Professor Messer, and then just trying to find used cheap books and go that way.
I wanted to add something in there. There's a good resource that I know of, and I'm pretty sure that you can actually, as a student at Pellissippi or prospective students, get a discount. A program called Test Out. It's a simulation-based learning platform, and they have like A+, Net+, Security+. They got hacking if you want to be a hacker. They got like server administration, and they've got everything. For a student membership, it's like $20 a month, which is crazy because professionals have to pay like $70 a month. So it's something that's super great to take advantage of. It's called Test Out.
What do I wish?
I think Chris,
like I said,
I thought you froze for a second, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, just how much there is in IT. I think everyone, when they see IT, they think like somebody just in the back just connecting routers and modems together, and it's like there's so many different things you can do. You could be a programmer, you can be like I said, a robotics engineer, you can do cloud, you can do so many different things in IT. And just the most basic thing is just get into it and then see what you like or which direction you want to go and go that way. But yeah, that's one of the things. And yeah, I think that's it. Keep the questions coming.
Yeah, if any of the other guest speakers want to jump in on kind of what they wish they knew when they started out in IT, if you have any insight.
Honestly, if one of the things I wish I knew whenever I started in IT was, as Mike said earlier, scripting language, like scripting or some form of programming or knowledge of logic-based systems. That's something I really wish I knew whenever I got started, because automation is taking over. Like, if you don't learn some sort of scripting, even on a basic level of how to read it, you're just going to be left behind, because it's just like Mike was saying, the days of like consoling into a router and saying, okay, let's fix this, let's fix that. No, they're just going to run a script and it's just going to flash everything and start it over to the config that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm a second that one. I feel like I know a good amount in IT. I don't know languages like I should. Right now, one of my classes, I'm expected to know PowerShell and Python, and it's like it's a daily struggle for me right now. But if you could do anything before you get in the program, get like Solo Learn. That's a really good app, and just learn a language. Python's a good one. C Sharp, C++, Java, something. But there's a lot of different languages you can learn. But learn a language, yeah, that's important.
We have a question here about what is the most important skill you've learned?
The most important skill I've learned is not even on the technical side. Like I said, it's the networking. It's just being able to walk into a room or go to work or whatever. Pellissippi, before all this happened, had a lot of different programs, a lot of different things going on campus, and I made it a point to try to attend everything. Just get your name out there, meet people, just trust me, the more learn.
Uh-oh, I think Chris is breaking up a little bit. Well, did any of our other guest speakers want to jump in about what is the most important thing that they've learned, they think? The most important skill?
Sure. Like he was saying, the most important skill I've learned is actually not a technical one. It's proper documentation. And I know any of the professionals here, they'll see them nodding their heads. In IT, if you didn't write it down or didn't notate it somewhere in a note of some kind, it just didn't happen, like flat out. And you'll come into a lot of situations too where you're working with people who don't take notes, and you'll go and access systems that they put their hands on and be like, I have no idea what this person did to this thing. And having a good note-taking system just for every little change you do, like change management, really makes a huge difference and can save a company millions in man hours.
I'd like to answer that question too. One of the most important things I've learned is being able to work within a team, being a contributor to that team, and then learning back from that team. If you get a good, 2 or 3 people who work well together, you'll get a lot accomplished. And if you get a mix of an older technician who's got experience, it's a good fit when, say, an associate or an entry level comes in. You can be taught, you can learn, and you can actually, for the entry level person, accelerate your experience by not having to learn the hard way. If you've got that tutoring relationship within that team, most of everybody I've met or have worked with, if an entry level person comes in, junior level, they'll help you. And if you're willing and accepting, and like Chris said, if you want to soak it up, they'll throw their experience your way, and you can receive that and just make yourself better.
Awesome. I have a question. We've talked a lot about different certifications, and I wondered how easy it is once you get kind of a base level degree or a specific degree. How easy is it within the IT field to change course just based on certifications?
I can chime in on that one. Going from biochemistry to IT was completely just 180. Once I was able to get through A+, I've got a background of way back in the day, going to LAN parties with the big towers and the CRT TVs, taking that knowledge what I learned when I was young and realized that I kind of did like doing that. It kind of sparked something and led me to go down the cert path. And then luckily the company I was working at had an opening in the IT department, starting as entry-level help desk, and it just naturally went from there. Once that passion's there, it's easy to go.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. Do we have any more questions at this point for our guest speakers before we move on to hearing Caleb Williamson talk a little bit about networking at Pellissippi? Okay, well, I am going to turn it over to Caleb then.
All right, first I'd like to say thank you so much to our guest speakers. That was awesome. I wish that you could all come into my class and talk to my students about this too. So this has been great. So at Pellissippi, we have Associate of Applied Science degrees in CIT, Computer Information Technology. We have 4 concentrations. So we have programming, systems administration, cyber defense, and networking. Obviously, this event is more geared towards networking, but one of the great things about Pellissippi is that you can take, some classes in networking if you want to get your degree in networking, but also take some classes in programming if you want to learn some skills with scripting languages or, some more cyber defense type things. So that's super exciting that our students can do that. As was mentioned, we have, the Tennessee Promise program. So you can go to Pellissippi full time, completely for free, right? So no tuition. You can finish our program, our AAS degree, in 2 years, taking a full-time load. Typically, that's like 15 hours, usually per semester, but you can reduce that load a little bit if you're willing to take some summer classes, right? So we typically have also some students who go into our Associate of Science degree in computer science. So that's a transfer program that's really meant to go to schools like UTK, right? So if you want to go get a bachelor's degree in computer science or some related field, then the AS degree is the one for you. Our AAS degrees can certainly get you into a bachelor's program after you're done, but we really are trying to give you the foundational skills so that you can go and immediately get a job right after you graduate with us, right? And part of that is thanks to the GIVE grant that's allowing us to do this. We also have embedded certifications in our classes now. So you take our A+ hardware, A+ software, Network Plus, and Security Plus classes. At the end of the class, Pellissippi will pay for you to take those certifications, right? Completely free. All those classes are targeted towards those certifications. So hopefully once you finish with us, you have your associate's degree and you already have a good start on some of your certifications, right? So another thing we have an internship included at the end of our associate degrees at Pellissippi. So you will have experience working once you finish with our degree, right? That's built right into the program. Like everyone said, certifications, all of our guests said that, right? So at Pellissippi, we're not trying to make you an absolute expert at networking. We're trying to get you in the door, ready to move up. Like everyone has said here, it's such a wide field, right? So we want to give you that foundation to get you ready to move into whatever it is that you want to do with your career in IT. Okay. So I'm an advisor for Pellissippi for networking. If you have questions about our networking program, you can always contact me, email me, my email address. I'll put it in the chat below. And also I'll put our program checklist in the chat below, so you can see some of the classes you would take with our networking program. Are there any questions?
If anybody has any questions, this is such a great time to ask them. I know when I was applying to colleges, it would have been a dream for me to get to ask faculty or really an advisor or anybody at the college specific questions about the program. So if you have any, make sure to ask them. And if you think of some later, please follow up with me or Caleb or our career navigator, Laura Grosek, and we will make sure to get those questions answered for you so you can make a college decision that's really as informed as possible. Okay. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, but we are going to move on after that review to Laura Grosek.
Hi, I loved the question about what can you do now in high school, because that is a lot of what the Give Grant is doing. We're trying to get you guys thinking about what you can do now. So coming up, we have several things going on. Some of them were still in the works, but since you've joined this meeting, you'll be part of my email list and you'll be getting more details. But one of the big things is next week, our internship applications are due. So if you're interested in doing an internship during the summer at a local industry, we are taking applications for that. So I can send it out. If you don't have it, feel free to email me or email back Becca and she can get me your information. But I think most of you that I'm seeing names have gotten the internship application. We also will be having some summer camps this summer. Those applications will be going out in the next week or two. So keep an eye out for those. And that again is another great way to start learning about the IT field. And finally, in the fall, we will be having some dual enrollment opportunities. So if you want to start taking your classes now, we will have those opportunities. So just again, email me for more details about those and we can get you set up. We're looking at doing the 1301, which is our first class in all 4 of those areas. So any way that we can help, if you just have questions about what might happen. And yes, I'm seeing, can you email me the summer internship application? And I certainly will email that to you. Does anybody have any questions about that? There are 3 parts to that application. So there's an application, and then there's an essay part and a reference part. So if you do end up applying, make sure I get all 3 of those pieces. Any questions? All right, well, thank you all so much for coming. We appreciate both our guest speakers and the students that hopped on today. I know it's a beautiful day out there, so we appreciate that you came and talked to us for a little bit of your evening. And we hope that you'll come and do some more of our opportunities that we have coming up.
Okay, thanks everybody. Y'all have a great night.